It's April 21st, 2025, in Bremanger, Norway, a remote municipality where the fjords carve deep scars into the mountains and the sound of water is as constant as your heartbeat. But this morning, that sound isn't calming. It's chaotic. 500 liters of water per second, 2 million gallons in just 4 hours, are tearing through the sluice gate of the Svelgen hydropower station. This isn't the gentle flow of glaciers or the hum of turbines. This is sabotage. A single keystroke sent from thousands of miles away has turned Norway's most trusted resource into a weapon. And in that moment, the world learns a chilling truth. Even the safest systems can be hijacked. To understand what happened in Bremanger, you need to know Norway. This isn't just a land of fjords, northern lights, and Viking history. It's an energy superpower. Over 90% of Norway's electricity comes from hydropower. Water harnessed by dams to light homes in Oslo, power factories in Bergen, and feed energy-hungry neighbors like Germany and the UK. These dams aren't just infrastructure, they're the lifeblood of a nation. For generations, Norwegians have trusted them. They're safe, automated, untouchable, until that April morning, when trust turned to vulnerability. At first, the local operators thought it was a glitch. Hydropower stations are tech marvels, sensors, computers, and automated systems working in harmony. Sometimes a sensor misfires, sometimes software lags. But this was no ordinary glitch. Commands from the control room were ignored, screens showed fake readings, flow rates that didn't match reality, gate statuses that lied. For 4 hours, the dam was a puppet, and someone else was pulling the strings. Water, the resource that powers Norway, became a weapon in the hands of an unseen enemy. By August 2025, Norway's police security service, the PST, confirmed what many feared. This wasn't a malfunction, it was a deliberate cyber attack by pro-Russian hacker groups. No ransom demands, no stolen data, just pure, calculated sabotage. Their goal? To destabilize, to frighten, to send a message to Norway and to Europe that even the most serene fjord hides dangerous currents. But why Bremanger? Why now? To answer that, we need to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Let's rewind to 2022. Russia invades Ukraine, and Europe's energy landscape changes overnight. Russian gas, once a cornerstone of the continent's power, is cut off as sanctions bite. Europe scrambles for alternatives. Enter Norway. With its vast hydropower and natural gas reserves, Norway becomes Europe's top energy supplier virtually overnight. By 2025, it's exporting electricity and gas to Germany, the Netherlands, the UK, and beyond. This isn't just about money, it's about power, influence, and independence from Russia. And for Moscow, that's a problem. Norway's new role made it a target. The Bremanger hack wasn't about one small dam in a rural valley. It was about sending a message to Europe. Your energy security is fragile. Disrupt Norway, and you disrupt the continent. But how did hackers pull it off? How do you hijack a dam from halfway across the world? The answer lies in a piece of tech most people have never heard of: SCADA. SCADA stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. It's the digital brain of industrial systems like dams, power plants, and factories. SCADA monitors turbines, regulates water flow, balances electrical grids. These systems were designed decades ago in an era when cyber warfare was science fiction. Back then, security meant locked gates and guard dogs, not firewalls and encryption. Over time, remote access was added for efficiency. Engineers could adjust settings from Oslo or even abroad. Contractors could log in to troubleshoot. But every new connection is a new door. And if that door isn't locked tight, someone's going to walk through. The details of the Bremanger hack are still classified, but experts have pieced together the likely playbook. It starts with a weak link. An unpatched server, a stolen password, a contractor's laptop left vulnerable. Once inside, hackers don't need to blow up the system. They just need one command: open the gate, hold it open. Ignore the override attempts. For 4 hours, that's exactly what they did. Engineers scrambled, manual controls failed, and water poured into the fjord unchecked. The damage was limited. No villages flooded, no lives lost. But that's only because Bremanger is remote and the fjord could absorb the surge. Luck, not defense, saved the day. Luck. That's not a strategy. What if this had been a larger dam, like those feeding Oslo or Bergen? What if it was winter when snowmelt and ice swell reservoirs to their limits? What if multiple dams were hit at once? The potential for catastrophe is staggering. A coordinated attack could flood valleys, destroy roads, bridges, and industries. It could knock out power to entire regions, leaving homes and hospitals in the dark. And even without physical destruction, the psychological impact would linger. Hybrid warfare isn't just about damage, it's about planting doubt. After Bremanger, every Norwegian knows their dams aren't untouchable. This wasn't Russia's first cyber attack, and it won't be their last. Let's walk through the history. In 2007, Estonia, a small Baltic nation, moved a Soviet-era statue, sparking a diplomatic spat with Russia. Weeks of cyber attacks followed, paralyzing government websites, banks, and media. In 2015, Ukraine's power grid went dark in the middle of winter, leaving 230,000 people without heat or light. A year later, it happened again in Kyiv. In 2017, the NotPetya malware, traced to Russian actors, swept the globe, hitting ports, hospitals, and businesses, causing over $10 billion in damage. Even the US wasn't immune. Colonial Pipeline's 2021 shutdown disrupted fuel supplies across the East Coast, though that was about profit, not geopolitics. Bremanger fits this pattern, but it's a new chapter. Norway isn't a country at war like Ukraine. It's a NATO member seen as stable, modern, untouchable. And this wasn't just a digital attack, it was physical, a gate of steel and concrete, controlled by code from thousands of miles away. That's what makes this so chilling. It's not just about servers or screens. It's about the real world bending to the will of a hacker. Here's where it gets wild. The world barely blinked. International headlines mentioned the attack, then moved on. Other crises, wars, elections, natural disasters stole the spotlight. But in Norway, the reaction was immediate. The PST ordered sweeping security audits across the energy sector. Remote access protocols were tightened. Manual inspections of critical systems doubled overnight. Yet officials were blunt. No system is perfect. In cybersecurity, defenders have to plug every hole. Attackers only need one. Let's talk stakes. Norway's hydropower doesn't stop at its borders. It flows into Europe's grid, powering homes and industries in Germany, the Netherlands, the UK. Disrupt it, and you don't just hurt Norway, you shake the continent. Beyond the electricity, there's symbolism. Norway's dams represent Europe's independence from Russian energy. Attacking them isn't just tactical, it's psychological. It's a reminder that no one is untouchable, not even a NATO powerhouse. So why didn't the hackers go bigger? Why just one gate, one dam for 4 hours? Analysts call it a probe, a test run. They wanted to see how fast Norway would notice, how quickly they'd respond, how loud NATO would react. The answers aren't comforting. It took hours to detect the breach, days to confirm it was sabotage, months to officially pin it on pro-Russian groups. The global response? A shrug. For the hackers, that's a green light. They proved they could infiltrate a NATO country's critical infrastructure and walk away unscathed. Now let's play out the nightmare. Imagine a coordinated attack on multiple dams. Reservoirs unleash torrents, flooding towns, washing out roads, bridges, entire industries. In winter, when snowpack and ice bloat the rivers, the damage could rival a natural disaster. Even without floods, a prolonged grid shutdown could plunge Norway, or parts of Europe, into darkness. Hospitals on backup generators, factories stalled, economies grinding to a halt. And then there's the human toll, the fear, the doubt, the realization that the systems you trust, water, power, safety, can be turned against you. That's the true power of hybrid warfare. It's not just about destruction, it's about eroding trust. After Bremanger, Norwegians can't look at their dams the same way. The water that lights their homes, charges their cars, runs their lives, it's vulnerable. The dams they've trusted for generations can be hijacked. And that fear lingers long after the gates are closed and the water levels stabilize. Let's dig deeper into the tech. SCADA systems like the one at Svelgen are everywhere. They control not just dams, but power plants, water treatment facilities, even transportation networks. They're the invisible backbone of modern life. But many were built in the 1980s or 1990s, when the internet was in its infancy. Cybersecurity wasn't a priority. Over time, companies added remote access to cut costs and boost efficiency. Why send a technician to a remote dam when you can tweak it from a laptop? But every remote connection is a potential entry point. A weak VPN, a phishing email, a contractor's outdated software. Any of these can be a skeleton key for a hacker. Once inside, hackers don't need to understand the whole system, they just need to know enough to cause chaos. In Bremanger, that meant opening a sluice gate and locking out the operators. But the possibilities are endless. They could overload turbines, causing mechanical failures. They could manipulate sensors to hide a real flood. They could even chain attacks across multiple dams, creating a domino effect. The scariest part, we don't know how many other systems are just as vulnerable. Norway's quick to act, but what about other countries? What about the dams, grids, and pipelines we all rely on? The Bremanger hack wasn't just a Norwegian problem, it was a wake-up call for the world. Critical infrastructure is under siege. In 2020, Israel reported cyber attacks on its water systems, traced to Iran. In 2021, a Florida water treatment plant was hacked, nearly poisoning the supply. These aren't isolated incidents, they're part of a new kind of warfare. Hybrid warfare blends physical and digital, targeting not just systems but societies. It's about creating chaos, sowing fear, and undermining trust in the systems that keep us safe. Back in Norway, the aftermath of Bremanger is still unfolding. The PST's investigation revealed gaps in security that are being addressed, but the reality is stark. No system is foolproof. Norway's energy sector is now on high alert, with new protocols for remote access, mandatory two-factor authentication, and increased physical inspections. But the challenge is global. Every nation with critical infrastructure faces the same threat. And as our world gets more connected, smart grids, IoT devices, cloud-based controls, the attack surface grows. So what's the fix? It's not simple. Upgrading SCADA systems means overhauling decades-old tech, which costs billions and takes years. Air-gapping critical systems, isolating them from the internet, sounds good, but isn't always practical. Modern infrastructure relies on connectivity for efficiency and monitoring. Training staff to spot phishing attempts helps, but humans make mistakes. Governments can impose stricter regulations, but hackers don't play by rules. It's a cat-and-mouse game where the mice are always one step ahead. The Bremanger hack wasn't a failure for the attackers. It was a success. They didn't need to flood a city or crash a grid. They just needed to prove they could. They showed that a NATO country's infrastructure can be breached, that steel and water can be weaponized with a few lines of code. And they did it with the world barely noticing. That's the real legacy of Bremanger. Not the water that flowed, but the doubt it left behind. The sound of rushing water in Norway used to mean power, progress, safety. Now it carries a warning. The next attack could be bigger. It could target multiple dams, power plants, or even entire grids. It could hit Norway, or it could hit anywhere, your city, your country, your home. The question isn't if it will happen again, it's when and where. The fjords are still beautiful, the turbines still spin, but the silence between the hums carries weight. Because in 2025, warfare isn't just fought with tanks or missiles, it's fought with code. And code can command anything.